Hey guys, welcome to another episode in the series called Choir Matters. So this is, of course, we're going to talk about all things choir in this series, and today I'd like to talk about choosing the right repertoire for your choir. Now, maybe you're thinking, duh, that's a very elementary thing to talk about. And it is, but it's also a profoundly important thing to talk about, because I work with many choirs, and I have over the years with hundreds of choirs probably, and most people don't get it right, especially amateur choirs, which, like we've talked about before, that's most choirs. Very few choirs that you and I get to do with in our lives are professional choirs where people get paid to sing in the choir, right? So in amateur choirs, and especially at school level, I'm sorry to say most people don't get this thing right about choosing the right repertoire. So we're just going to quickly chat about a few points that I've found helpful throughout the years, and I think it could help you as well. So the first thing is, I don't really choose my repertoire for my choir before I have completed my audition process and I've put together the choir for the next season. Right, so now in school choirs, this is an ever-changing thing, right? The seniors leave, the juniors come in, and you've always got changing membership. So I do my auditions first, then through the audition process and knowing what I've got already, adding the new people, I develop my sense of what kind of repertoire will be good for my choir for the next season. That's really important because you have to consider the sound, right? Like I might get 10 people audition this year for this one particular choir that have really big voices or that have really brassy sort of voices, really standy, outy type voices. That'll affect the kind of repertoire I choose. So I don't choose before I've auditioned and put together my new choir. The second point is, and I made this point in a 3-Minute Thursday episode about choosing the right songs to sing for individual singers. I said, just because you love it doesn't mean you should sing it, right, in that video. Now, in this context, just because you, as the conductor, love a certain piece of music doesn't mean it's the right music for your choir to sing. It's very important because many, many conductors I know do that. Oh, I just love Jerusalema. Oh, I just love Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh, I just love whatever is the new thing that some choir made famous. And then because they love it, they think their choir should sing it. No, that is a very poor principle to choose repertoire on. Then the next point, which was funny in the other thing as well, is choose music that you like. So I will never choose repertoire, and I have in the past. I've made this mistake. But now I'm wiser. I don't choose repertoire that I don't like, that I don't connect with. If you don't have a personal connection as a musician, as a singer, yourself, with the music, how are you going to communicate that and teach that and coach that with a whole group of singers? You have to like the music. All right, so I think that's really important. Then once you've chosen the music that you can connect with, but that you think will suit your newly chosen choir, before you finalize your selection, sing through the parts. A wise woman taught me this many years ago, a wise choir conductor. Sing through each line. If you have a 4-part choir, sing through the soprano line, the alto line, the tenor line, the bass line. And see how singable it is, how tricky it is, how difficult, what's the level of difficulty. And if you have to sing it 3-4 times before you can get it right in certain parts, then if you work with children especially, chances are they are going to really struggle with it. So that's a really good tip. Sing through the parts to see how well it sits for you as a singer, which will probably indicate a lot about how well it will sit for your singers, okay? And then the next point is your repertoire must be appropriate for your choir. I mean, duh, right? But there are several things that play a part here. The age of your singers, their voice type. Like if you have a treble voice choir that consists of first, second, and third graders, that's a very specific kind of sound that children make in that age bracket. You have to consider that. Please don't sing a pop rock song with your 7 and 8-year-olds. It's not appropriate for their voice type. So you consider, for appropriateness, you consider the age, the voice types, right? Then also the skill level of your choir. I have heard choirs consisting of 6, 7, and 8-year-olds who sing very challenging repertoire, right? But that's normally in a case where that choir has built up their choir culture and their standard, their level of skill, the culture of how they do things, the kinds of performance experiences they have. They've built that up probably over decades. Right? In a normal primary school around here in South Africa where I live, in your average primary school, infants, choirs, like grade 1, 2, and 3, you have very low skill levels. You might have a few naturally talented kids, great, with great voices, but mostly the kids have no skill. And it's not just vocal skill, which of course you have to train them over time. It's also auditory skill. What are they able to perceive as a listener? Because remember, a singer is a listener. If you're a singer, you have multiple listening processes going on, right? I don't want to get into that, but you're listening to external sound, maybe a piano or another accompanying instrument. You're listening to your own voice as you sing, and you're listening to the voices around you. So there's a lot of listening going on. So that to develop those listening skills takes time. And you can't sing repertoire that demands a great level of auditory skill if your singers don't have it yet. You must consider that, right? And then the last thing that I think you should consider in terms of choosing the appropriate repertoire is, what is the culture of your choir? What does your school principal, your school's management require of your choir? What is the plan for the year? For instance, I had a choir who 4 years ago now, participated in the World Choir Games, which is a biannual event, which is like the Choir Olympics, right? So that year, for that choir, I chose very specific repertoire because I had a very specific task to accomplish. The next year, that particular school where I have this choir had their centenary celebrations. So the school was 100 years old. So we had a whole different goal for the year, which determined the repertoire that I chose. So from year to year, what you have ahead of you, what you're planning to do, what is demanded of your choir, especially school choirs, has to play a part in the repertoire you choose. Okay, and then furthermore, there must be variety in your program. Even if you have a junior choir, lower primary kids, who go up and sing only 3 songs, as opposed to maybe a high school choir that can go up and do a 25-minute program. Even if there are only 3 pieces of music, there has to be variety. Because you want to make it interesting for your audience, for the listeners, right? Unless, of course, it's a very specific kind of performance where this is a concert of folk songs, or whatever. Then you're going to have 3 folk songs. Maybe it's even a specific language is required or whatever. But even then, you can have variety, right? So variety, there are many different things that come into play there. Different tempi, right? So this piece of music in my program of 5 pieces, let's say, this one is a slower tempo, this one is fast-paced, this one is mid-tempo. So I change the tempo. I want to have repertoire that requires a different tempo because that makes it interesting for my listeners, also for my singers actually. for the performers, right? So different tempi, music that comes from different periods in music history. If you have a more advanced choir, you can sing Renaissance stuff with, and stuff from the Romantic era in Western art music history. So don't just sing contemporary stuff that was all written in the last 20 years. Then it's too similar, right? So variety, different periods in music history, different languages. How about that? I have had lower primary, junior choirs sing in Latin, sing in Italian, sing in some of our native South African languages. Don't underestimate children. They can do it. You just teach them. You must conquer that language, though. Make sure that your pronunciation is authentic, that you understand the repertoire, that you have translated the text and know what they're singing about and all of that. But people of all ages, from young children, can sing in different languages. They definitely can. So do that. And then, of course, another variety point is a cappella versus accompanied. Oh, now so many choir directors that I've worked with are just afraid to do a cappella. They go, oh no, my kids can't sing a cappella. Probably they're right, but the reason their kids cannot sing a cappella, which means unaccompanied, right, is because they never train them to do that. So with even my primary school choirs again, sometimes in a rehearsal, I might use a piano for technical development, like to activate the voices and to develop the technical skill in the beginning of the rehearsal. But once I start working on a piece of repertoire, I hardly touch the piano sometimes. Every now and again I go and I check, am I still in D major? If the piece is in D major, I'll just check the D. I'll give them a pitch reference on the piano. I even use my tuning fork to get natural pitch, right? And I can run half an hour, 40 minutes sometimes without touching a piano at all. So I teach the children to hear their voices well, because that is what makes them sing a cappella well and just sing well overall, is if they can hear their voices. So stop hammering out every melody note that the choir has to sing on a piano. Please stop doing that. We are not actually helping our choirs by hammering out their melodies on a piano. Because when you duplicate the pitch a singer sings on any instrument, but especially on a piano, which is quite percussive actually, the sound, then you make it harder for the singers to hear themselves, because they compete. The same pitch they sing competes with us on the piano. So try, be brave. Okay, it's going to take a while, and you might have to be patient for a while, for yourself and your singer's sake, but get away from the piano. You learn to sing those melodies accurately. And then you tell them to copy you, rather than copy a piano. The human voice and the piano makes a way different kind of sound. We can actually not copy a piano at all, if that makes sense. So, a cappella versus accompanied. And then when it comes to accompanying instruments, why don't you throw in a violin or a flute or a drum, a hand drum, a shaker, something. Use different instruments where it is applicable, right? Where it's appropriate, where it makes the music stronger. And definitely when it's written for the music. If the music was written with 3-part treble voices, plus piano, plus a violin, plus a shaker, then obviously you have to have that. But even if it's not written in, you can choose, be creative. You can choose some other instruments, handheld instruments that even some of the singers can play. Right? And just make it interesting, some variety. And then the last thing I want to touch on is rather choose music that is very achievable for your choir to sing versus super challenging stuff that they just struggle to get to. Does that make sense? Maybe you've had those kinds of experiences. I have many times in my life when I was younger and very ambitious and not so realistic. I would go, oh, I love this Brahms motet. My choir should sing it. I think they have the skill level and I love it and whatever. Oh, and then the whole season it's a struggle. And every time they perform it, they don't actually really get to do justice to the music. Even though they can sing it, there's something about a Brahms motet that requires a greater level of maturity, a greater frame of reference about what that music was about that was written in that period and what Brahms did and whatever. So I will have something challenging. I try to have something challenging in my choirs program every year or every season, definitely. Like if I have a choir that would maybe sing 15 or 20 pieces of repertoire in a season, I would have, out of 15, I'd have at least 2 or 3 really challenging stuff, but definitely the minority. I want to have lots of pieces that they can connect with, the singers, quickly, and that they technically and musicality-wise, auditory skill-wise, that they can get on top of and do justice. So they can, because it motivates them, right? If they hear when they sing it, it sounds good. And when other people listen to them, even in the rehearsal process or leading up to performances, and people go, oh, that's so cool, and people clap along, or people tap their foot, or people just applaud loudly because they love it, then that motivates my singers. So I definitely have a big chunk of my repertoire, very achievable, quickly attainable, because that motivates them, which doesn't mean I don't have anything challenging. Very important. I want to stretch myself as a musician, as a conductor, as an educator, as a singer. I want to stretch myself with something that I haven't tried before, maybe something that changes time signatures a lot, where I have to really concentrate on my conducting technique, right, and develop some new skills. I want to challenge my singers. I want them to keep growing. But just that balance is super, super important. And you don't want the challenging things to kill the joy. Because if singers cannot feel the joy of performing, accomplishing something, communicating something, seeing a response from an audience, then you're going to have trouble motivating them to stay connected, to stay enthusiastic, and so on. Look, these things are very complex, actually, you know. And if you've been doing it for many years like I have, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But some of you are maybe younger, you're new into this thing, and I really hope these few tips that I shared, or at least things to think about, will be helpful to you. And like I always say, please use this video. Please watch it again. Pause it, write things down. Go and try and implement 1 or 2 of the things that I said when you choose your next set of repertoire. And go and look at your current repertoire against these things. Go and measure it against the things that I talked about today. And maybe you'll find, okay, that's why this is not working. You know what I mean? You and I are on a journey. When we're a musician and in music education as a conductor, we're on a journey and we're always learning and we'll always make mistakes. And sometimes this very strong opinion I had 5 years ago, now I have a way opposite opinion because I've learned some things. Life, the practice of what I'm doing, my craft, has taught me differently to maybe what I believed earlier. So always be open, to learn new things. I am. Anyway, I hope that was helpful to you. If you enjoyed it, please give the video a thumbs up. And I would love it if you would comment on the video. If you would tell me what was helpful to you. If you had questions, you can ask me. I really try to get to the comments and answer people. And and share this video with other colleagues of yours that maybe don't know about Charisma Performing Arts or Johan Bester or the Choir Matter series. Share it with people. I would really appreciate it because my heart is for people to grow. My heart is to help people. I just love this journey that we're on called, singing and choir music and performing and educating and entertaining. Such a beautiful world that you and I get to be a part of. Thanks again for spending the time with me. And until we see each other again, please remember that your voice matters.